to another episode of the Shitlord Preachers podcast. We are on episode 27. It's definitely a very different episode than we've done before. Before we get into all of that, just to let you guys know, my name is Amos Joseph. I'm joined by my friend here, Brook Potter, who is in the UK, me in Minnesota, of course. The Shitlord Preachers podcast was created for those of you who are joining us for the first time today, which is more news that we'll be getting into. Shitlord Preachers is a show where Brook Potter and myself, who both used to be preachers, we got together and started doing this podcast as a result of us having our conversations all the time regarding news, regarding culture, and just libertarian stuff in general. I'll just real quick just let you guys know my name is Amos Joseph. Like I said, here in Minnesota. I'm going to give Brook a little bit of an introduction here. Introduce yourself, Brook.
Good to see you, Amos. It's always good to be back on the stream. 27 episodes. That's pretty impressive, man. We're doing well. Good day, listeners, from wherever you are in the world, and especially our new listeners that might be coming in for the first time. As my friend Amos has rightly said, my name is Brook Potter, originally from the Twin Island nation of Trinidad and Tobago. I recently moved out. It's really not that recent anymore, is it? It's like almost like a year and a half. I moved out to the UK, and I'm out here in London trying to make a life for myself. And as Amos rightly said, we met originally in the Christian conference sphere of influence. And, as our beliefs and so forth evolved and, we had a lot of the challenges within the realms of religion, we started to see those same challenges out there in the world, in the realms of politics and culture. And we just kept having the same conversations about, things that were going on, current events. And, Amos thought it would be a good idea if we start to share a little bit of that dialogue with the world. So that brings us here today, man. So thanks for having me again, Amos.
No problem. So to get into this before we go any further, today marks the first episode that we are part of the Think Liberty Network. Think Liberty is a libertarian website, social media group, I guess. They're on, if you guys check them out on Facebook, Think Liberty, as well as Think Liberty on the internet, on their website. I had recently become a writer for them, and as time went on, I started bringing up the fact that we had a YouTube channel. We had the Shitlord Preachers, spoke to their multimedia department, as well as the sort of the head guy of Think Liberty, and they wanted to bring us on board. So as of today, this episode is episode 27 of the Shitlord Preachers, but it'll be considered the first episode that will be on the Think Liberty Network. We'll be joining their different shows, such as the Think Liberty podcast, their Coffee Shop Philosophy, Amagi, which is another show they have there, Liberty on the Rocks, basically talking about libertarian stuff with a little bit to drink.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Exactly. It'd be tough. It'd be tough for Brook and myself to do it. I mean, not so tough for Brook because it's what is it? It's 5 o'clock in the afternoon now.
Yeah,
it's 11 o'clock for me. Yeah, I wouldn't want to get drunk this early in the day.
Maybe just recommend a 2-drink minimum for the podcast. So anybody listening, it sounds better after 2 drinks.
Exactly. But we will be joining them as well. I think we're the first show that's basically kind of coming on with episodes already on before we join them. I know pretty much all the shows have been created on the Think Liberty Network. Now we're the first one to kind of be added on. I wouldn't say midway through, but with episodes before. So if you guys are joining us for the first time through the Think Liberty Network, definitely check us out on YouTube. If you look up the Shitlord Preachers, Shitlord one word, Preachers the second word, you'll definitely see we've had more episodes before now. And if you got, and of course, in the future, if you guys do enjoy the podcast, enjoy the show, definitely subscribe to us on YouTube, where you'll see the unedited live stream that we do versus the edited version, that kind of more streamlined
podcast
version.
Friendly.
Yeah, the podcast friendly version that will be on the Think Liberty Network. But yeah, let's get into it. Basically for those of you who are joining us for the first time, the format's pretty laid back. We have some topics we talk about, and to be honest, sometimes we kind of wing it too. We just have discussions about newsworthy items, cultural stuff that we see.
Melania's shoes.
Melania's shoes. That was a real fun one. We had an episode where we were just joking that Melania's shoes were talked about so much during was it hurricane? Whichever hurricane that was. There's so many hurricanes that are coming around, and it's always talking about everything but the hurricane. Like Melania's shoes. So, Brooke, you had a couple of things that you wanted to bring up for the topics today.
I think the big thing, you said that you and a couple of the guys from Think Liberty discussed this before, but the internet censorship thing is really becoming a major issue, as I'm sure you know. We spoke with what was his name, Mike, and got his views at the time when Alex Jones was the biggest martyr of the cause. But as you said, more recently you've been seeing more of these kind of political and political media groups and pages, as well as individuals basically having their page deactivated. Like, I was actually kind of concerned because my fan page has libertarian in it, and out here in the UK, libertarian is a very bad word. Like, these people, they think it's like Guy Fawkes trying to burn down the Parliament building sort of thing, which is a tradition out here, right? But yeah, this has been a concern, and I'm sure you've seen a couple of these people affected by this thing.
Well, good thing. It's definitely a good thing that Think Liberty wasn't affected by it.
Sure.
We had gone over a couple of things to. Mike Ursery, or the Liberty Ginger, who was on our show a couple episodes ago, he'll be starting his show. I don't know the exact name. I know the working name is kind of somewhere around the Liberty Ginger News Roundup or something. He's still working on that, but he and I were both on their podcast recording the other day, and we talked a little bit about some of the methods that probably triggered some algorithms that got these pages deactivated. Something about using alternate accounts to sort of trigger the algorithms a little bit in a way that the algorithms didn't like it, where it looked like it was spamming. So that's why they targeted, last I heard was basically 800 pages and personal Facebook accounts. So there's deactivating the accounts, they zucked them, and they unpublished the Facebook pages. Some big ones, some small ones, who were basically when they would have articles or memes or something published, they had a system of alternate accounts, some sock accounts that were like just cycling them through to get their viewership and their organic reach, as it shows on Facebook, out there. Facebook caught on to it, and there was that. But it wasn't just bad algorithms, but at the same time, it was very much. As much as they might want to deny it, Facebook pretty much targeted this as a purge. It wasn't just, banning a few here and there as part of a normal day-to-day operation. Facebook accounts are banned and unbanned or suspended. I'm using Twitter terms at this point, but they violate some community guideline, and then they give you a 30-day suspension kind of thing or whatever.
Have you been suspended?
I have not. I have fortunately not been zucked. I don't post a lot of stuff on my personal Facebook. If I post anything, it's maybe into Facebook groups and such, which aren't monitored quite as closely.
Right.
I know there's certain things, like people have said if they posted, whether it's if there's certain words or certain types of pictures. People talk about memes and pretty edgy kind of memes. If you post certain types of things, the algorithms will immediately pick up on something, or if you say a certain word, you can get picked up on that. But that's mainly if you're just posting on your timeline. In Facebook groups, it really depends. Excuse me. But yeah, it was a combination of very biased treatment from Facebook and triggering the algorithms the wrong way, basically. It's kind of like what we've been facing with the YouTube thing with monetization, and the adpocalypse, as it's been called as well. You say the wrong words, you have the wrong words, and you always have to manual review. But if you still don't have the right, you don't have the right kind of words. Like if you have free speech in the title, it's a very low chance that you're going to get a proper manual review to come through. So,
I mean, in your sense, I mean, have any of the groups that you've been, affiliated with, any of them been affected?
No. I mean, I know Caitlin, who's one of the people at Think Liberty, said she was in some groups, like group chats or just groups they're doing kind of like a networking of like share for share. So we'll share yours, you'll share ours, get reach and stuff. And she said she was connected with some people through there, but in terms of just through myself, I mean, I'm just not really networked enough to really get into.
Okay. So
notice that
we're too small to really,
we're not
get
cool
on
enough.
I mean, that is one way of dealing with this. I mean, it's a lot better than the situation out here in the UK, where let me see if I can pull this up. Obviously, if our podcast listeners are not going to be able to see this, but you could see it on the live stream. Out here in the UK, we have a different problem, which is, as we see here, the UK MP thinks secret online groups are the root of all evil online and promises to regulate large online groups. In other words, if you have a group that's hidden or secret or any kind of privacy settings and stuff like that, the UK Parliament actually wants the right to bust it open and run their search algorithms and other things behind the scenes. And this is what we are dealing with out here in the UK. I don't think you guys are this bad yet, but I mean, it's coming, man. I mean, you're getting crap from the companies, the media companies, and the social media companies. We're getting it from the state, man.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely. So they want to actually regulate social media in like secret Facebook groups, like the hidden ones too.
The hidden ones, yeah.
Oh, geez. Yeah. I've heard. I mean, here in America, you definitely hear a little bit about people thinking that. You hear sentiments that those secret groups are like the worst groups or evil going on within social media. I mean, I think we talked a bit about the Discord thing. Discord servers are being taken down, or at least the some sort of data for them. So like chat transcripts and stuff are being downloaded and analyzed. There was some leftist group that was basically trying to buy chat data from certain alt-right or far-right servers to properly map out the alt-right network, quote unquote.
Right.
And it was basically showing that Discord was not to be really trusted anymore, that they're not really allowing people to have their servers be private. So yeah, it's just more and more platforms, both big and small, are getting further and further, I guess, censored and just not really private anymore.
Yeah, the freedom of speech and the discussion is being shut down. And, there's a break in confidence between, I guess, the larger population with the state as well as with these media, social media companies and stuff like that. Kind of similar to what happened to the Catholic Church back in the day when people actually started reading the Bible and realizing all the garbage they've been having. they rebelled, and the Catholic Church has never quite had the power that it had back in the 1500s. I think something like that's going to happen as well. I think for both governments and these social media platforms, we already know of alternatives that are coming up. For Facebook and Twitter and stuff like that. They're not mainstream yet, but they're trying to espouse these ideals of free speech and allow the conversation to go on and stuff.
Right. It's a difficult thing. We had the conversation about that with Think Liberty, where they were saying, all the content creators are leaving, but the users are still there. So it's going to be tricky to, like, for example, like the alternatives to YouTube or like BitChute or what was it, VidMe and stuff. Some of these are tricky because as much as the content creators are going to leave, the user base might not leave with them so quickly.
Correct.
Same thing goes for Twitter with Gab, and then Facebook with Minds and stuff like that. Did Google Plus ever take off? No.
Actually, I think they just took Google Plus down. I think Google has actually just deleted it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
There's that, and it's tricky because you have, for us libertarians who are espousing our, competition and trying to say, there's, the market will provide another solution. It's tricky to provide another solution that people just aren't going to hear about because, obviously like Facebook and YouTube and Google, some of these pages, they're going to be the ultimate decider of what you're going to hear about. So it's going to have to be a really small trickle of people transitioning over to other social media sites before you really see the change happen.
Yeah. I think in some respects, like, I deal in the markets and stuff like that. So like Facebook is definitely feeling the crunch from, their censorship action. The company missed revenues, their margins are shrinking. And just to be honest, right, the millennials, like I'm sure some people you may know, they don't use Facebook. Like the young people on their phones, they're like, what's Facebook? Right? They're more onto the Instagram, the WhatsApp, Snapchat to a degree, but Snapchat has its own problems. So Facebook is really kind of stops at your generation, right? It is
starting to die off a bit. It kind of peaked with my generation, we'll say.
Yeah, I'd say it peaked in your generation. Grandma, grandpa, our parents, and my generation, your generation. We use Facebook. I don't even use it that often anymore. I just kind of shit post and try to stir the pot a little bit. And but yeah, I basically kind of cut my personal profile. I put aside. I have my public profile, so at least I can control the dialogue a little better. But yeah, it's done. It's done. The only reason I go on Facebook is to read any current events, either here in the local place that I'm in, or even news in my home country of Trinidad and Tobago. I'd like, okay, something might be going on. But I don't see the pictures of like my friends. I don't see any of that kind of stuff anymore. It's just noise. And I think a lot of people are sharing that sentiment that Facebook is really, it's on its deathbed unless they really come up with something creative.
Yeah, they're not being real sneaky with these zuckening.
No, they're not.
With their purging. They're thinking, they're going to be real sly about it, and we're just a bunch of sheep, I guess, that just aren't going to notice.
This, of course, has a lot to do with the midterm elections with you guys, right? Because that's coming up in what, November?
Right.
Yeah, so it's less than a month away. And I believe, of course, nobody knows the mind of, Zuckerberg and the people behind this, but I sincerely believe that the midterm elections has a lot to do with this. I think it had a lot to do with why Alex Jones got targeted as well, because he was an early supporter of Trump. But I think there's going to be a huge backlash from this. My sentiment is the Republicans really have the momentum, especially after the Kavanaugh stuff. What do you think?
The Zuck works in mysterious ways.
That's a good way to put it.
Well, not so mysterious if you know about the bias. No, yeah, I mean, you have the Democrats are definitely showing their true colors, and the bias the bias hold that they have over Silicon Valley is definitely is directing a lot of the information that is being received by people. So, I mean, with the nationwide turnout rate of voting in general for elections, let alone midterm elections, it's really tough. I mean, the ones who are going to vote are ones that are going to be somewhat informed. So it's a toss-up between your right-wingers that are just, have that sense of patriotism towards their voting rights versus the left-wingers that you're going to have, whether it's they've dialed back their voting turnout because they're leftists, or they're just maybe too lazy to come out, or they're going to, the Trump derangement is actually going to get people to vote more. You
think Kanye had an effect?
The Kanye thing is, well, he's not even Kanye anymore. He's just yay.
Is that a thing? Did he actually drop his name?
Yeah,
or that's just what
on Twitter.
I mean, I haven't seen.
The artist formerly known as Kanye is now Ye.
Oh, that's funny.
Y-E. Let me actually look this up. Yeah, it was on Twitter.
Interesting. So at
Kanye West, but
the artist formerly known as Kanye West, now Ye. Do you think he's made stirred the pot a little bit?
Well, I mean, in typical Kanye fashion, he wasn't making much sense talking to Donald Trump. But as a cultural thing, as a pop culture movement, he's definitely stirring the pot with. I mean, he's wearing the MAGA hat, and a Black Lives Matter T-shirt. So there was that whole thing with how, some people had a hard time understanding what he was saying by the MAGA hat being his Superman cape.
Right. Yeah, I think I heard that bit.
I mean, do you get what he's trying to say with that? Because I think I do.
I can't say that I gave it any thought.
I mean, because people really were like, what is he talking about? He's not making any sense. Yeah, most of the time he probably really isn't.
Right.
Because, as South Park loved the joke so much about him, he's a motherfucking genius. But he's kind of like I think he's kind of like a black Jim Carrey. Just have you heard the more recent Jim Carrey?
Oh, the we gotta promote socialism thing.
Well, before that, the super spiritual Jim Carrey,
right. His existential experience,
gobbledygook. So basically, I think Kanye is very much like that. He's trying to speak on these very esoteric ideas and concepts that just kind of like a Russell Brand, but less of a word salad. You get a lot of these celebrities that are just they have their existential moments and they start getting really they just read the wrong book, listened to the wrong guru, and they're just getting all kooky and weird.
Right.
And Kanye is kind of like that, but I understand what he means by this. He looks up to Superman as a superhero, and he thinks that the MAGA hat makes him a superhero because I think it's because it's such an outcast, maybe? Such a symbol of being an outcast. If you wear a MAGA hat, you're kind of shit on by society, at least by mainstream society. Like if you wear a MAGA hat in public, you're going to get beat up, get it taken off. You might get.
That's a tough one. I mean,
you kind of get what I'm saying, right? The whole outcast
right.
thing.
But I mean, how is that related to Superman's cape, though? It's like,
well, he thinks because Superman was kind of not like an outcast per se,
right.
but he was an outsider, being this alien kind of thing, and just Superman. And so Kanye kind of maybe thinks the hat does the same thing.
Oh, okay. I can see
he's
that.
taking on this mantle of being outside of an outsider. Yeah, kind of thing.
Interesting.
Well, I'm not necessarily saying he's making 100% sense here, everyone, but I to just dismiss it without taking any thought into it, I kind of go, well, there's a little something to it, but it's just that it's very little something.
I mean, I don't think I watched the full episode. Sorry, the full interview. I just got too much going on, but I did see the CNN response.
This is what happens when Negroes don't read?
Yes, I saw that.
And not racist at all.
Yeah, totally not racist at all. That's just acceptable commentary. And I think I was watching the comparison because Taylor Swift recently did something, and I mean Kanye and Taylor Swift have a little history where he basically got up, took the mic from her, I think at the MTV Movie Awards or Music Awards or something. And I mean she recently came out in favor of the Democrats, I think.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, "Oh my God, that's so brave!" And of course, the media is creaming itself, over another celebrity endorsement as if they're in short supply. But then Kanye, of course, is totally flipped this thing on its head, and well, of course, he's the Negro that doesn't read. And I mean, even for me as an outsider, right? Like, I'm not into the American politics as much as I used to be, but I'm like, the average person must see the nonsense of what the media is doing. It's just too blatant at this point to ignore.
Yeah, we've definitely gone off the deep end here, Brooke, and I don't know what to do. I mean, I sit here and I look at you guys, and your government's gone crazy, but at the same time, I mean, here our news has gone crazy. So I really don't know what to say about it. It's yeah.
I mean, just thank God for alternative media. If we didn't have, while we still have it, YouTube, alternative media stuff, and the Twitterverse and stuff like that, we'd probably be a lot worse off. If we were not allowed to have these kinds of dialogues, we would probably be, in a much darker place than we are now. We'll basically be progressive because the only thing we'd know is what we read in the news, and that's kind of it.
Yeah, it is the last stand, I guess, the last little bit of free speech, unless if somehow in the future, I guess, if some of these platforms get completely overrun, I guess you just have to go to the dark web then.
Pull up your Tor browser.
Exactly. Then it'll be like real free speech going on in there. But no, yeah, it's a real mess, and I think we're kind of beating a dead horse talking about it, but we still talk about it because it just every single day we're just surprised more and more how much deeper it goes.
Yeah, it's the rabbit hole, right? It's how deep does this thing really go? And yeah, you're right. I mean, it is something that we've done to death, but at the same time, it keeps offering. It's the gift that keeps on giving.
Starting in November of 2016, with the too much winning started, and
right.
Honestly, I am definitely tired of the winning. Because no, I'm saying that kind of ironically. The winning, I mean, how you look at winning is definitely a subjective matter, I think. But at the same time, the quote-unquote winning is making us lose a lot more because it just pushes the left crazier and crazier and crazier. I mean, you know, it is worse than I think it's worse than the worst gambling you see at casinos because it's doubling down, tripling down, quadrupling down, and you're just the social credit, if you want to call it that, that the left is having with America. They somehow just keep finding more credit to dip into to double down on whatever they're doing, and some point it's either going to be a backlash or a collapse because they're going to be so far left that they don't know where they used to be.
I mean, I've seen some of the political commentary, and I don't think especially the Democratic politicians, they don't know what they're saying. They don't understand what they're talking about. It's a lot of talking points and stuff like that. I mean, have you seen Elizabeth Warren recently did her DNA test and found out like she's like 1% Native American, and she did a whole promotional video about it.
Oh my God.
And did you? I don't know if you that I think that may have recently happened, but I mean, now you can legitimately call her Pocahontas, right? Because she's like 1/500th of a Native American, and yeah, it's like this does not matter. You spent money doing all of this stuff, but obviously she wants to run for president. I think that's why she's doing this now. But really, this is the most important thing that you have to address.
Well, yeah. Speaking of, I don't. So you're not in the States, so you wouldn't see this as much. But our midterm elections, the big thing is attack ads, political ads on TV. So how many ads do you think can go in a row? Like, give me like a rough number. How many political ads do you think you would see on normal American TV in a row?
I would assume it'll be at least 2. One from each party, like one from each major party.
I counted, and I stopped counting at 8 in a row.
8 political ads in a row. On TV?
Vote for this guy. Don't vote for this guy. Independent PAC that doesn't want to vote for the guy that was just here. Another attack ad on this guy. Another attack ad on this guy. Another family group attacking this guy. Boom, 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 boom. 8 in a row.
Wow.
That's 4 minutes of programming.
Wow. I had no idea. Oh, yeah, I forgot about the PACs.
Most of your commercial, 5 minute, if it even is 5 minute, I don't know what it is anymore. Most of your 5 minute commercial break is attack ads, political ads. Now, these are obviously like local ones, so you're talking about your local representatives and stuff.
Sure.
But goddamn, it was like, I counted this and I was like, no. I was just
where did you see this?
I was at a friend's house. We were watching TV, and I just looked over at him. I said, "Let's count." And I'm like, 1, 2, 5. I was just like, what? Your local TV. So your regular like local channels that you watch. So here in the States, you have your local channels like your news, they're basically your networks that are like
regional.
Your regional, your networks that are having their regional channels. For example, like so here where I am, you have like channels 2, which is PBS, public broadcasting. You have like 4, 5, 9, and 11. 17 is a Catholic channel, which is like a religious channel. 23, 29, 41, 45. That's just Minnesota's channel. So you go to but then you go to different parts of the state. You have some other ones. Different parts of the country will have like different numbers. But they're all like, you have your Fox, CBS, NBC, PBS. You'll have like duplicates of certain ones. So like there's like a Fox. So like Channel 9 is Fox, but there's like another Fox on another channel too. So basic channels you would pick up with an antenna.
Sure.
So we counted 8, and that's when I stopped counting.
Right, and it continued.
Yeah, it continued.
Damn.
It just got it's kind of one of those things. Actually, people actually hate it so much. Like they're not actually like sitting here like, oh, I feel so informed right now. No, it's like, so and so voted against affordable health care, but so and so is in the back pocket of establishment Washington. But then here's the family group that is against him because he votes for, he's in favor of like children transgenders or whatever.
Right.
And but this guy, he actually hates poor people. And then this guy, it's the same two guys going back and forth
with the different CPACs and everything.
Yeah.
I mean, again, this is somewhat the difference with Europe, right? Because you guys have these long ass campaigns, right? People campaign, like for the U.S. presidency, the campaigning starts probably about between 2 years to a year and a half out before the actual election of the U.S. president, right?
Yeah.
We don't have that here in the UK, right? You get like a month, right? So the candidates come out, they start, they go regional representatives, we call them the MPs. They go door to door, they knock on your door, and they're basically a month where the parliament is closed and you hash it all out, right? They do the debate, they do this, they do that. Yes, we're not as big as you guys, so I kind of understand a little bit about that. But it's all over in a month, right? It's done. And then you don't see crap. You don't see any of this other political nonsense, right? But you all have a year. And obviously more than that.
More than that. There really isn't like a time you're supposed
to
not
political.
Not do it. I know we've talked about you've heard about like Larry Sharpe in New York with the
libertarian candidate for governor.
Yeah, so he talks about Cuomo, yes. As he calls it, the king of New York.
King of New York.
And he goes on about how, like, why is it that Cuomo has what was it, like 20 times or 30 times the funding of the next candidate? He's got like $30 million already raised for his campaign to stay governor of New York, but the guy's still raising money. The guy is going to different countries and different states. He's talking about things as if he's some sort of a national level politician. Right. And he said, because he's preparing to run for president. So this stuff can start while you're not even running for president yet.
Years before.
So there really isn't a limit on it. What is it? What are we in? We're in 2018. We're like a year and a half into this new presidency, and they're already talking about who wants to, is Bernie going to run again? Is Clinton going to run again? We actually talked about this with Think Liberty. Is Biden wants to possibly get into it too? Yeah. So
that's pretty crazy. Would you say, right, thought experiment here. Now, would you say it's because if you change the voting system, like you guys, I assume, use first past the post, right? So whoever has the most votes wins.
Right.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I know the presidency has like the electoral college and delegates and all of that, but essentially it's first past the post.
Right.
Right. So, which inherent in the nature of a first past the post, it naturally gravitates towards the two-party system, right? So you may start with a whole bunch, but eventually people start voting strategically and other things, and you kind of narrow it down to two. But it gives you the freedom to attack the other guy. But if you had a different voting system, like the alternative transfer vote, sorry, there's the phone is ringing in the office. But yeah, the ATV, where you could rank your candidates and say, well, okay, these are my top 4 or top 3. So I like the Libertarian first, the Republican second, and the Democrat third. And they go through the listing and, okay, so let's say the Libertarian doesn't get enough votes on the first round to make it to to get the position. They will start to count up who's the number 2 guy, and they start to add the votes up until somebody reaches a majority. And when you do that, you have to appeal to the voters of the other guy, right? So if you're the Republican candidate or the Libertarian candidate, you can't attack the Democrats' supporters because you might want them to put you as number 2. So you actually have to be nice to these guys. Do you think that might, I think a couple states might be doing that, but it's an interesting discussion. What do you think?
I know we've talked about this before. I'm just voting systems are tricky enough as it is.
Agreed. It's a complicated issue. But I mean, the question is, do you mind the negative ads?
I don't watch TV usually, so I don't mind them. That's just the truth for me. Me personally, I don't watch TV as much. So now this was definitely an interesting one. I think there was a time when political ads would actually target you based on your IP address. So if I'm if I'm sitting here watching YouTube videos, local political ads would pop up as advertisements.
Yeah, of course.
And
it's the same thing. I mean, for a long, when I was in Trinidad, we didn't have a lot of ads because YouTube wasn't monetizing the country. So the first time I ever saw ads on YouTube was when I was in the US. And I was like, what the hell is this? Like, I just never seen that in Trinidad. You pull up a YouTube video, you watched it. I mean, that's now changed. They're now monetizing ads, right. And I would get ads for Trinidadian things, right? So I'd get the local KFC, and there's a local pizza brand called Pizza Boys. And it was so weird for me when I finally got back and that happened. It's like, why am I seeing these things? But yeah, of course, it's all targeted. I don't know if you've ever run a Facebook ad. You can get as specific as, age range, gender, location, down to what they're interested in, right? So if they're interested in freedom, liberty, anarchy, minarchist, whatever, you could actually put those in as keywords into your your advertisement, and it will only target those people. So it's very nuanced.
Right. I mean, wasn't it? This is something you told me a while back. Didn't you have a friend that he was asking you about dating, and you said make a Facebook page and run an ad to like age groups, women, and a location and interest or something?
Yes.
And then he got like all sorts of hits off of that.
Yeah. I did that. I did that early on, back when I was looking for like a good Christian woman. Because you can set the Facebook ad to female, age range, single, and put like a whole bunch of interests. And I was getting hits from all over. I picked great countries. Venezuela, beautiful women from Venezuela. This before it turned into a shithole. Right, like Canada, America. I did all the European countries and stuff. And yeah, I met some very interesting people that way. It wasn't as far as my other friend who like really. But he built it up because, he was like a strong guy. So he built up like a bodybuilding page to kind of like show off his pecs and stuff. I don't know whatever came of that. I really should check in with him and see if, maybe he married one of those girls.
Exactly. But that was like early on advertising when we didn't know so much about the algorithms. We just knew like how to target things. If anything, it's just, it's a Facebook personals ad or something.
Yeah, exactly.
But I know you can still do that nowadays, but now it's just you get most of your reach goes to click farms, just people that are sitting there clicking likes that aren't really real profiles, or they're not generating any real reach per se.
Yeah, a lot of those places are in India and out in Asia and stuff like that. So a lot of times I would exclude those countries from my algorithm, like from my ads. For that exact reason, I don't want to be wasting money on click farms, and just getting like random likes and other things like that. But
racist,
yeah. Forgive me for not wanting to waste my money, because you pay for every click.
Exactly. Um, no, there was another thing that you had brought up that I'm not too, I guess. Oh, something about women's cycling you brought up that you wanted to talk about?
Oh yeah, so yeah, I mean, I don't know. Okay, let's see. Have you heard this?
Okay.
Biological male wins world championship event in women's cycling. Now, I don't know if I don't know if you're a fan of cycling. Like, I actually do enjoy watching the Tour de France. But I mean, these are long endurance, competitions and stuff like that. And here we have it: a biological male who identifies as a trans woman won the World's Women's Championship cycling event Sunday in California. Rachel McGinnis, I think his real name is Richard. McKinnon. Yeah, I think his real name was Richard. An assistant professor of philosophy at the College of Charleston, South Carolina, won the women's 35 to 39 age bracket at the 2008 UCI Masters Track Cycling World Championship in Los Angeles.
Hold on. So if the person used to be named Richard, are you saying
I might be wrong? I don't actually know what it was, but I think that was what it was.
Are you saying this person is not a dick anymore?
It doesn't actually say, it doesn't actually say this person has transitioned. It says this person identifies as a woman, right? I think, let me just make sure that's what it said, right? Where was it?
Yeah, first paragraph. That was first.
Yeah, right. Exactly, right. Who identifies as a transgender woman. So here's the picture. I don't know if you can see this. This is off the.
So for the listeners, this picture is from Twitter, and basically the Dr. Rachel McKinnon says lots of transphobic bigots are responding to my world championship win, saying the next up, the Paralympics. Hey, women, you realize that all these people, many of them women, are comparing you to disabled people, right? Women equals disabled men, they think. Wow, offensive. And if you look, this trans woman is built very much like a man.
There doesn't seem to be any kind of surgery.
No.
There's nothing evident to suggest.
Now, just to be full disclosure, we can't see through the cycle pants. But definitely larger, more stronger looking quads, calves, torso. Everything is still built very much like a man. I think the face seems a little bit more effeminate, but still short hair, like a man. Hair is one thing, but it's just this person who identifies. Actually, you have her Twitter pulled up. Well,
yeah. So I could actually, maybe we could just take a quick
look. All I see is long hair and makeup.
Right, and I'm not even sure. That's not even it's real hair. I don't know her real hair. I think that's a wig.
Yeah, it's purple hair too.
Oh, look who follows her. Him.
Oh, yeah. Lacey Green follows this individual.
Here's another picture.
Still has manly hands, manly arms, manly everything, really.
Yeah. So, I don't really want to dig up too much into that, but this man that identifies as a woman, I don't know the person well enough to respect them to assume everything and assume their gender.
What is it? I remember Ben Shapiro talked about the article about the couple, basically the trans couple, the couple that transitioned, where the trans man got pregnant.
Right. Yeah, I think it was a girl that transitioned to a man and the man that transitioned to a woman, but I think they maintained the genitalia. Like, obviously,
so they made it sound like, first man in history gets pregnant.
This is absolute nonsense.
So and then just Ben Shapiro's like, well, woman gives birth to baby, correct it. So it's like, if you look at this article about the trans woman, it's like man beats women at cycling race.
I mean, that would be a more accurate depiction. No, you see, I don't know I don't know this person and stuff like that, but it is a continuing problem, right? Because of all of this inclusion and everybody, gender as a social construct and stuff like that, we're denying the scientific realities that there are biological differences between men and women. And as I say, just male exposure to testosterone when we're young gives us a strength advantage that no supplementation for women is actually it's going to replicate. So, for instance, like the world champion for women's weightlifting is a transgendered woman. It's a man that was a woman. At least it was. I think this
year.
You
mean a woman that was a man?
No, it's a man that's now a woman and competing in the women's weightlifting.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Okay, yeah.
Right. But I think this
year, how confusing it is.
Yeah, this year she like busted her knee, and then somebody else actually won. But if it hadn't been for that injury, she would have cleaned up, just destroyed everybody in the competition. The same thing happened. I think we talked about this on one of the streams with the 100-meter dash I think it's the European Games or something like that, and it was a transgendered woman. So it's a man that's now a woman. I mean, beat these women by a mile. Like, they couldn't. There was no way they could keep up with this. So all of this inclusion and all this other stuff, it's disadvantaging biological women. And I mean, this is why we segregate the sports to begin with. They're just biological advantages that men have.
Trans sexism?
I don't know what it is. It's definitely causing discrimination against women. If this trend keeps up, there are going to be no more women in sports.
It's just going to be trans women in sports.
It's just going to be trans women in sports, right? So this ideology and all of this inclusion and stuff like that, as with it, pretty much everything else, women always end up taking the brunt of these types of ideologies.
Woman of the Year, Caitlyn Jenner.
Caitlyn Jenner. There you go. How crazy is that?
Caitlyn was
smooth. I struggle with it too. I sometimes when I go out to the clubs, I'm in London, right? So sometimes I go out to the parties and stuff I hear. And like one time I went to this very eccentric party with a friend of mine. She's an erotic photographer. So it was a burlesque show that turned into a party, and it was all types of characters there. And this 6'7" guy walks in who's wearing stiletto heels, with like implants, hairy chest, but it's got boobs and it's wearing cat ears. And I'm looking at this thing and it's like, what do I say? Like, I did not know what to say to the guy, girl, whatever. And because I'm from the Caribbean, like I use man as like a colloquial speak, right? It was, what's up, man? And I said that, and I was wondering, oh shit, did I just offend whatever this is because of, like, hey, bro, like I would say bro, I say man, right? and I just kept repeating it to make him realize that it's a, it's just a cultural custom thing. But it's a real issue. I struggle with this. So far less for everybody else who's trying to figure it out, which is why I think most people just like, whatever, just let them do whatever, But women are going to pay the cost.
Yeah. I think I remember, so I've showed you this comedian, Bill Burr. Some people here in the States know about him. He's he's the guy that was, you remember the one I showed you where he was like, the whole like, I'm not sucking dick. The whole.
Yeah.
Basically
repress their feelings.
Yeah. What are you, a fag having bananas with your pancakes? It's like, so he had a good point. He doesn't get political. Like, he doesn't show any specific political leaning, but he made a good point. He was, this was a while back. He was on Conan O'Brien's show. And he basically said, like, he's like, how do they expect us to just like, just move on? Like nothing's different. Like, so he's like, this Olympic medalist, It's like just imagine like you're having a conversation, and halfway through the conversation, Bruce goes, well, I've always been a woman and all this stuff. And then he goes and gets, he's like saying, gets tits, gets all this stuff done and comes out, and you just look over and like, are we just expected to just look over and go? So as I was saying, Caitlin, like just continue the conversation like it's nothing's happened. Like it's confusing, The way he laid it out was just like showing like society is just expecting people to just move forward with talking to transgender people as they're just people. Like, yes, you definitely talk to people like people, but you don't just like, we're just like skipping over biology, because it's all a social construct. I mean, what was it? There were some posts I saw where just because, what is it? Penis isn't necessarily a penis, or a vagina aren't necessarily a man or a woman's thing. Just because you have a penis doesn't mean you're a man. Just because you have a vagina doesn't mean you're a woman.
Right.
Like, what?
I think I may have seen that one. There was quite a storm of controversy in the comments below.
It's all a social construct.
Well, I mean, the Olympics and these other things where this, social construct is being put to the test is proving quite definitively that it's not just a social construct.
Yeah, it's... I'm just so tempted to be like, your mom's a social construct. I don't know.
I mean, so would you say that we should have a trans Olympics and a special games for trans people? Or is that so much segregation?
Yeah, would that be segregation at that point? And then
we're already segregating sports between men and women. So do we create a special class for transgendered women and transgendered men? I think we're going to have to, if this trend continues. Yeah, I think we're going to have to do it.
Something. I mean, then it comes down to who's more transitioned than others.
Right.
Because the transitioning still has an effect on your physical performance.
Right. Well, I mean, this, like how a lot of these people try to get around this thing, right? Especially if it's a man that is trying to compete as a woman, like a biological man who's competing as a woman.
I mean, if a man just throws on a wig and says he's trans, he's going to beat all the other women who are further down the transitioning process.
Right. So we should have trap Olympics then?
Oh God.
I mean, I'm just speaking out loud, right? But I think it has to happen. I think if you're going to do this, if you're really going to destroy the tenets of science and basically the mores of society, you are going to end up having these more and more segregated Olympics. So how they try to get around it now is like, okay, well, if you're transitioning from a man to a woman and you're on estrogen and your testosterone levels are low, they allow you to compete. That doesn't exactly help because your muscles have been exposed to testosterone for a great length of time. So the density is stronger. There are all types of biological advantages already built in, even with low testosterone.
I heard something about how bone density is affected.
Yeah.
So trans women tend to have a stronger bone density because they don't have as much of an exposure to. Women tend to suffer from like osteoporosis, just weaker bones because of their chemical makeup. So a man
when they get older, yes.
And I guess that applies to men where these trans women can actually build strong. Well, are basically going into it with stronger bones than women. Heard something about that. That's Joe Rogan was talking to something on that, but
yeah. So there are biological advantages in terms of performance that being born a man, even if you transition later in life, is definitely going to have performance enhancing abilities in that respect. And to deny it, we're seeing the evidence of that. Like every trans woman is just decimating their particular field of sports. I mean, the most tragic one was the UFC fight. I can't remember the names of the people involved, but it was a trans woman versus like a regular woman in
right.
Yeah. And, she got so badly beaten. The natural woman got so badly beaten from the trans woman. She said she'd never felt so overwhelmed in her entire life. And she's not like your everyday, kitchen, woman and stuff like that, Right. She's not just, dusting behind the fridges. I mean, she was an athlete. She's trained in her field and stuff like that. And she takes a beating for a living. This is part of her career. And she went up against a trans woman that supposedly had low testosterone and all these other things. And she ended up in the hospital. And as with all of these ideologies, women are the ones that are going to suffer for it.
Yeah. Like you were saying, the further segregation and if anything, yeah, it's a mess. I mean, what was it? Jordan Peterson did a study. He looked at the studies regarding gender equality, regarding so countries in like Scandinavia that really push for gender equality have actually exhibited, if you want to say, signs or symptoms of more basically falling, where the genders are falling more into their traditional gender roles than away from them, versus countries who don't push for gender equality as much.
Correct.
So it's interesting that here we are, we're trying to push this inclusion sort of equality thing, and it's actually creating more inequality than equality.
Correct. I mean, this is what the whole thing comes down to, in the sense, especially in the sports arena. If your daughter is going up for a scholarship in sports, or your son might do all right, but if your daughter needs a scholarship, like a track and field scholarship or whatever, right? Some kind of sport.
Right.
And she's banking on that to get to college or whatever. And she's up against a trans woman, which is a man that's now a woman. You are basically robbing the woman of the opportunity to get an education.
It's not equal anymore.
It's really not. It's really not. As much as you might want to say it and tout it and shove it down people's throats, the reality is showing that apart from the accident that the weightlifter had, because that's the only time that a trans woman is lost, trans women dominate every field of sports that they're in.
Right.
And that's at the detriment of other women, of biological women. I don't know if that's fair. I don't, it might sound nice, but what is the unseen? As Frederick Bastiat would always say, this is a economist, there is always the unseen consequences, right? So there is the seen and there's the unseen. So everybody, for instance, in terms of taxation and government spending, oh, look at all the jobs and all the infrastructure spending that you could point to and be like, this is government spending, these are your taxes at work, right? That's the seen. But what is the unseen? Where did that money come from? Where would that money have gone if you didn't steal it from the people? What is the unseen implication? Who has been robbed of what to put these roads there, et cetera, et cetera? So it's the same thing. So they're only focusing on the seen, which is, this is great, this is inclusion, trans women, they're included in the sports. But the unseen is the biological woman is not going to get a scholarship.
Right. In terms of an economic perspective, I like to say, we talk about the invisible hand. I say when the visible hand of government tries to interfere with the invisible hand, you have you're one is not seeing the other, and imagine two hands on a steering wheel, or one wasn't knowing what the other one was doing.
Sure. Fortunately, this is not government mandated, the trans thing.
Right.
But if you vote enough progressives in, it could be, because we know in Canada, which basically brought Jordan Peterson to notoriety, people were considering legislation. Like if you misuse the pronouns, like how I fucked up with the cat man, stiletto man, whatever he, she
Cat
was.
man do?
Yeah, like whatever pronoun that person would have wanted me to use, and I'd fucked up and said, yeah, man, and they took that as offense. That might have been a criminal offense if the Canadian bill had passed.
Well, it did pass.
Oh, did it? Oh, yeah, you're right. Actually, I did know that. So that's when that's when it's really dangerous.
Now they're really pushing for the thing with the kids, isn't it? The trans kids and taking your kids away from you or something.
Yeah, I think I've read about that from a kind of dubious Christian source. I wasn't sure if it was legitimate or not, but the premise is that if your child identifies as trans and you, as the parent, an authorized guardian, refuse to give that child medical treatment for transitioning, you can lose rights to your children. Like the government will take your kids away.
That makes sense.
I don't know. Well, I mean, that happens in the UK. Like, we do have incidents where the state has more authority over your kids' medical decisions than the parents.
Right. That's a whole other thing there.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know I don't have kids, but I know what that potentially could lead to, which is very frightening. But, I mean, fortunately, you guys haven't gone down that road yet, and we can only hope that the universe does not allow the people with these ideologies close to any kind of real power.
Don't say yet. Yet is such a scary word.
The problem, the issue in the US is social, right? The social pressures of not conforming to this ideology is, as you know, you get shouted down by the progressive left. And that's concerning. Like, people really do need to discuss, honestly, have conversations about these issues without just resorting to transphobia and bigotry and this other nonsense.
Well, it's all transphobia and bigotry if you even begin to talk about it.
Yeah, if you have a preference for biological women, obviously you're a transphobe, right? It's like
no, I am a penis phobe.
Yeah, I don't like dick.
I don't like what's not a woman.
Yeah. I prefer women,
Wasn't it like, I mean, not too long ago, being gay was one thing. Now it's not being inclusive is a whole other thing too.
Yeah, I mean, you don't hear the gay argument. I mean, the gay argument is one. Gays have rights, at least in the Western world. They can marry. They get. Yeah, it was. I mean, it was the religious right and the conservative right tended to have an issue with it. Even in Trinidad and Tobago right now. I was having this conversation with somebody last night. They have just decriminalized sodomy. Right now, there is a gay population in Trinidad and Tobago. It's very quiet. It's very low key. There are a couple clubs that are specifically catering to that, and it's very in the theatrical arenas and stuff like that in the U.S. In Trinidad and Tobago. So this stuff is going on anywhere, right? Man with man, woman with woman.
They were just at the butt end of the joke.
Oh, good God, Amos. You and your dad jokes. I must apologize to our listeners, but anyway.
Get used to it.
Yeah. So, Trinidad they just decriminalized it, right? They just said, look, if you want to, do it in the butt and you take it up the ass, you don't go to prison. It's no longer a criminal offense, right? But in Trinidad, the religious right, well, we don't really have a right and left in Trinidad, but the religious caucus, they had protests in the streets and they had big marches and, they held up the Sodom and Gomorrah stuff, and from both the Muslims, the Christians, the Catholics, and the Hindus, all sects of religion basically came out and said that they're not in favor of decriminalizing this activity. Never mind, this stuff is going on anyway, right? I mean, never an issue before, but now it's in the, all they've decided is like, look, if two men want to, hash it out with each other and have a roll in the hay, we're not going to fill the jails and waste the court's time for two men that, cranking one out, right?
Oh my God.
And I thought that was a perfectly reasonable position, but not everywhere is progressive as in the US and elsewhere. No, I take issue with the Supreme Court basically making that happen. It really should have been an act of the Congress, but that's a whole other story. But yeah.
Oh, you guys have a Supreme Court?
Well, gay marriage was legalized by the Supreme Court in your country.
Well, it was constitutionalized, I guess would be the proper term.
Just like abortion.
You can't really make it a law. It's from the Supreme Court. It's more so just, it's okay. We've interpreted it and made a decision that it's okay. It's like
we can't strike it down. It's permissible.
Yeah, it's kind of like how doctrines are hashed out in church. There's certain things that we tend to agree upon that just you don't really argue against that unless you're like some sort of a cult, like a cult sect within like Christendom. But yeah, that's a whole other thing.
But that's it. The gay argument is done. They got their rights.
They got
Who's left? I mean, the slaves are free. The gays have rights. Who's left? Who's left to fight?
Trans rights.
Yeah, now it's trans rights.
After
that might be something else.
There was that Time magazine article. It was like transgender, like something about the new civil rights frontier. It's like, why is it about more frontiers of civil rights? And it always goes back for me personally, and I think libertarians would agree on this. We tend to see rights and privileges and such as something that is granted by government.
No.
They see, oh, we got rights now. It's like, well, you've always had rights. That's what you need to understand. I talked about, whether or not people have any religious beliefs or not. You see the Declaration of Independence says we hold these truths to be self-evident. Now, in earlier drafts, it was talking about God-given rights, but they wanted to kind of avoid that religious language to a point to say self-evident, like.
Yeah, they didn't want the United Church of America, like.
Right. Like, yeah, the idea of rights, some people I've heard they just say natural rights.
That's John Locke and these guys.
Right. The rights given to self-evident. It was basically their nice way of saying these rights are just a given. They're just duh, like freedom of speech, duh, freedom of association, duh. Like these things are just self-evident. And there has to be a change in understanding of how rights are, given to us, where there's something that is outside of government that cannot be changed.
Correct.
We have these rights. We have them because we are human. We're not, however you want to work that out. Christians like to say, God gave us these rights, therefore government can't take them away. In principle, the understanding is these rights are just ours. We hold these that no government can take them away. Even the UN, as messed up as an organization is, the UN recognizes sort of a universal human rights idea. That when they see countries with violations of these, it's like, no, humans are just given this.
Well, that's not quite how the UN Declaration of Human Rights works, but I understand the principle. The Declaration doesn't actually phrase it like that, and it includes things like education and housing and food and other things.
So it's a little bit of a socialist.
Yeah, exactly. And for the record, they also don't condemn any other country, probably except Israel, in terms of these supposed violations of human rights.
Just throwing gays off buildings.
Yeah, I mean, some Middle Eastern countries I think like the shit really hit the fan when Saudi Arabia was appointed to the UN's Council on Women's Rights, and
What?
it's kind of like, what the fuck is going on? Like, it just shows that the UN has absolutely no legitimacy whatsoever. It's a complete farce.
I mean, give it to, like, I don't know, Norway or something.
Well, yeah, it's not an election. It's like a rotation. So like the next country in line will get it next time, and then like alphabetically or something like that. And but I think they resigned from the post. If I recall, there was kind of a lot of outcry about it, and they basically said, you know, Saudi Arabia really can't chair this committee.
No,
yeah, that's a whole other. But you're right in terms of. I mean, I follow the John Locke philosophy, which is basically what the founders believed in. And John Locke was the one who coined life, liberty, and property. Benjamin Franklin, he changed it to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness because he wanted to be able to tax people and take some of their property. But the original quote was life, liberty, and you know, the right to property. And he believed those were inalienable and all these kinds of things. I don't know if you saw the recent debacle on my Facebook wall, my personal wall, where discussing the issue of rights, I had a friend of mine from Trinidad and Tobago basically come up and he said, well, you know, the only thing that's a right is something that can't be taken away. I don't know if you saw that. I mean, it just kind of shows the absolute idiocy of this gentleman because there is no right on the face of the planet that can't be violated. Right, your right to life, somebody could kill you. You know, your right to free speech, you can be censored. There's no right that is above the ability of state and otherwise, to control it and basically to violate it. But that was his definition, and I could not for the life of me figure out, like, where the hell did you get that, and how could you be that foolish to actually think that's actually something?
Oh, I get what you're saying now. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was a healthcare thing. I think I put up an article from Fee that, you know, healthcare is a commodity. It's not a right. And, you know, well, he's just moved from Trinidad and I think he's somewhere in Scandinavia. So he's probably fallen in with the Scandinavian Kool-Aid and, you know, he's drinking on the socialist ideology. And yeah, he's become a complete minion in that regard. And, you know, he's clearly not thinking about what he's saying.
Right. I mean, yeah, it's.
So how do we connect that with the trans rights then? Because even out here in the UK, our PM, Theresa May, she was asking the question, like, what do we need to do for the Conservative Party to win the next election? And somebody brought up this whole thing about trans rights. And the Conservatives would kind of be what y'all would call Republicans, probably like literally conservatives in that sense. And they're kind of like, the party responded and said, if you focus on this, you're going to lose. Because this is such a small percentage of the population. If you're going to put the weight of the parliament behind this, you're going to lose.
I mean, the issue, is there an issue? I'm not going to play the whole, it's too nuanced to talk about. It's nuanced, but it needs to be talked about. There's the mental health aspect, 45% suicide rate, both before and after transitioning, because for gender dysphoria and just trans people in general. You're seeing a sudden spike in the trans, at least what people would poll at identifying as trans, because it's becoming, unfortunately, more of a fad than an actual thing that people, like legitimate gender dysphoria people, will go through. You're, of course, having the identity politics that trans people have to be Democrats, left-wingers, liberals, and so on. They can't be conservatives, someone like Blair White. You got to be an SJW about it. You can't be logical in talking about the issues regarding trans. That there are trans issues, but they're coming at it from like I said, a very social justice mentality that it's just you can't have any conversation about. You can't talk about the fact that, you know, hey, almost half of us kill ourselves. Hey, we're only like less than 1% of the population. Like, hey,
Correct.
really? I mean, really, when it comes down to it, they're just people. I mean, they're still just people, and we
Correct.
really don't have any like. Why do we need to make it more about a population that is less than 1% of the population dictating politics to the rest? Now, I'm not against, minorities still have to be protected, but there can only be so much before the common denominator starts to become less and less important. Like, the common denominator should be just we're all people and we all live in this country. And so we should all be given the same opportunities, the same things. But then you start bringing in all these other things where now if you, sort of the, the misgendering, the wrong pronouns, bathrooms, all because of this very, very small minority where before we even talked about these issues, a lot of them just got along just fine.
Yeah.
Yes.
We've always had transgenders.
Like,
well, it used to be transsexual. Now it's transgender. You notice that switch?
Yeah, well, the words sex and gender are now different words, apparently.
Yeah.
And I remember growing up when I first heard about the word gender, I was like, oh, is that just like a nicer way of saying sex? But then you wouldn't have gender with someone. You would have sex with someone.
How old are you? That's a pretty profound thing to say as a young man.
No, I'm just saying that now. I'm just like, like I thought it was fun. Oh, sex, but I understood like, okay, there's sex, like the act, and then there's sex, the identification. No, but I was thinking there's something I'm thinking about here. Basically, so we talk about the racism issue, we talk about slavery and all this, and when you look at the statistics, you look at that. I think like at the time, less than 2% of Americans were actually slave owners.
Correct.
It was mainly on plantation. It was like it was like the 1%, if you want to like coin the term like that. Like it was a very small amount of people that actually could afford them and have them in large numbers, and then so. Sure. You look at it, through ancestry and stuff, you don't really have a lot of people who are nowadays Americans, white Americans, who were even remotely related to any slave owners. Yet they're all labeled as sort of slave owners.
All white Americans are slave owners.
Exactly. So,
we have the same issue with colonialism, right? In the UK. And I mean, the UK fought to end slavery at great personal cost to the people and the crown and everything else. I'm not sure if we were the first to do it. I think we might have been, but even in the UK, we are still accused of being colonial and empowering, built on the backs of slavery and all this other kinds of stuff.
So one thing that I'm seeing is. This is just a bit of a pattern. The left or the SJWs are constantly taking the one extremely rare, you want to say unique circumstance and trying to apply it to the majority. It's sort of a inflated sense of minority rights. I don't know if that's the right way. Like they're taking the minority and inflating it.
Yeah, and it's selectively done, right? Because
a few white people reflect on all the white people. A few people reflect on everyone else.
But a Muslim terrorist, well, we just got flagged by the NSA. A Muslim terrorist, not all Muslims. And I am not in any way suggesting that all Muslims are terrorists. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that, there are aspects within the ideology of Islam that can lead to extremism. Just like I would agree they're Christians. There are aspects to Christianity. You could take the Bible out of context and that could make you an extremist.
But there's a reason, though.
Yeah. So this selective selective thing is even with guns.
There's a reason you have Christian pastors getting killed in the Middle East.
Yeah, but as I say, even with the left,
Muslims killed in the U.S.
Correct. For the most part, they're protected in the U.S. But it's the same argument with guns, right? So the amount of mass shootings and all these other kinds of things, it is a minority of gun owners that actually go out and shoot up the place and these other things. Most
violent crime has gone down, but mass shootings have been noticed more and more.
Right, and the majority of those are drug related in the southern states of like the border of Mexico. All of those are counted as like mass shootings, even though they're crime related. It's gang on gang warfare in Detroit and elsewhere and stuff like that. So they're like the lone gunman that goes and shoots up the school and stuff like that. So that's a great conversation for another time. It's not selective, right? It's like, no, that's all gun owners, right? All gun owners are just, on the edge, ready, to blow everybody away. And again, this is the hypocrisy of the left, so they take that minority and they impose it on the majority when it's convenient. But it's not helping their cause, and then, okay, when it's the Muslim doing something, oh, no, it's not all Muslims. It's not hypocrisy.
There's actually a classmate of mine, a former high school classmate of mine. He kind of got into, you remember Vine, the 6-second videos? He got a little popular on that, like a few 100,000 followers, kind of did a little side hustle, I guess you could say, with that. People were making money doing that.
Sure.
And he kind of took that after Vine died out. He kind of took it over into Instagram. So he does his Instagram where he talks about his life, what's going on. He's got a kid and a wife and all this. And then he does a lot of his fitness stuff. So he'll like show the different workouts he's doing. Kind of a fitness Instagram thing. Not like not necessarily uncommon, but he's doing that. And then he started kind of going down a music route. So he's got a Hispanic heritage. So he's doing some music videos and stuff. And so I kind of follow along with it just to see what he's doing. And I think he recently, just like literally the other day, put up something like a Instagram video of him handling a gun. And he wrote this whole post about it's important to be safe with a gun. It's important to use it only when defending the lives of people you care about, right, and always be safe about it. Like a very objective view of the gun. And he's just sitting there showing the gun he had. And I think he's talking. I didn't listen to the video, but I saw what he wrote out. Yeah. And I saw a couple comments, and they were like, "Ooh, guns, ooh, like." I'm thinking, like, that is where he's going to get a real taste of the internet, like the left of just, gun. Therefore, all these judgments, all these stereotypes. He's gonna,
he's a redneck. He's a Christian extremist. He's a nationalist.
Well, he's a Hispanic, like, brown-skinned guy driving a truck.
That's never stopped anybody from labeling people.
No, I know. I'm just saying it. but he drives a truck, and I forgot I don't know exactly what his day job is, but he's been relatively apolitical with the stuff he posts about. And now he just talks, just says "be safe with a gun," shows he has one, and it's gonna take him in a different direction just because of a gun. And it's just like, holy crap,
I mean, you said the left is again, their disconnect from reality. We did the transgender stuff. They're basically revoking Kanye West's black card, so he's no longer black. I don't know if you remember the Frank Zimmerman case, the shooting and stuff like that.
Zimmerman.
Is it right? George Zimmerman. He was Hispanic, so they tried to spin that as if he's white. I mean, it's just narratives that they're trying to fit, which shows that they're not really dealing with people individually. They're not really taking context and circumstance into account. And that's what's leading to all of this kind of nonsense. I have to do a video on that the left doesn't understand context. They're just, they know what they think, and they try to fit everything into those boxes.
What was that saying you said? Content is...
if content is king, context is God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, the context is
everything. I mean, many of the things we've said in this discussion, if taken out of context, could get us into a lot of trouble.
Because we talk about some pretty, controversial, edgy topics, and we could be very easily taken out of context because we try to really break down the more nuanced topics, which is something that we'll be doing a lot more of, I hope.
Hopefully. If we stay on the Think Liberty.
No. I think we'll be good with that. But once again, we're coming up on our time here at about an hour and a half, which we're going a little longer than other podcasts go on Think Liberty here. But once again, I just wanted to shout out to Think Liberty with pretty much Vinny and Caitlin and everyone over there at the crew for having us on the Think Liberty Network. Just wanted to thank them for giving us this chance to be able to reach more people as fellow libertarians working together. But thanks everyone for joining us today. Again, like, comment, and subscribe to the Think Liberty TV YouTube channel, but also as well as subscribe to my channel, which hosts the live stream, as well as Brook's channel, who he also does a lot of his videos over there. He actually has quite a few more subs than I do, but he does a lot. But we're both libertarians here on this, and like I said, we thanks everyone for joining us. Follow both of us on social media. I am at Amos Joe. Brook, are you just at Brook_Potter?
Yeah, I think I'm Brook_Potter on Twitter.
Yeah.
But we'll put all the links to the social media below.
Oh, definitely. Yep. But thanks everyone for joining us. We will see you guys next Monday then.
Thanks, guys.